evening and welcome to Face to Face. I'm your host Niresh Eliathambi for the Newsfirst team. Now, we're just a few hours away from General Election 2024, and then after a few more hours, we will know the result, and we'll have a new parliament being sworn in a few days' time, and a new government, a new cabinet. And then the hard work begins, trying to turn this country around. Whichever party ends up in office, forming the cabinet, it's got its work cut out for it. Control the cost of living, bring in investment, wipe out corruption. So many aspects to deal with. But tonight we're going to look at several aspects, including the possibility and the dire need, in fact, to bring in investment to the country, without which we don't have new jobs being created in a large quantum, and we will continue to have this brain drain where Sri Lankans will be leaving the country. So there's a lot of ramifications to this, and to discuss all this and much more, I have with me this evening Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe, who is the president of the Global Forum of Sri Lankan Immigrants. Dr. Nilanga, welcome to Face and good evening.
Good evening to you also, Nira.
Right. So, Dr. Nilanga, you are quite familiar with Sri Lanka, of course, because you lived here all your life. You were the chairman of the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board about a decade ago, but you then migrated to Switzerland, where you've been, you are now about 8 years, I believe. Right. But you have never sort of cut ties with Sri Lanka. You have maintained very strong ties.
Yes.
And you are in an excellent position to tell us all about how to bring investment from the Sri Lankan diaspora, which is out there, millions of Sri Lankans, how to bring that investment back into Sri Lanka. For starters, how many Sri Lankans are we talking about when you count the ones who have migrated permanently and also the ones who are out there for employment purposes? This is a large number. Approximately how much? How many is that?
Yeah, it is estimated around 3.5 million.
Wow.
It's a huge number, and every 1/7 citizen lives in the abroad. So it's a huge resource for the country. Then we have to think how could we get that resource to the country to develop our country. Yeah, it's a good talk.
Yeah, so 1 in 7 Sri Lankans lives overseas. Now, obviously, those who are in employment, especially in the Middle East, are actually sending back whatever they earn, whatever they save. They're sending it to their families, their wives, children, parents, and so on, who are still in Sri Lanka. But a large number of this 3.5 million are people who have migrated permanently. Which countries do we have a large diaspora? In Europe, for example?
In Europe, you will find the biggest diaspora in England or the Great Britain, and in Australia and the USA.
Right.
And if you get all together in Canada also, we have a huge number of immigrants.
Right. Yeah. And what about other European countries like France, Germany, Italy?
Yeah, we have a quite good number of immigrants there also. As an example, in Switzerland we have 100,000 Sri Lankans. In France, again another 150,000 immigrants. In Italy, it is more than 250,000.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
very big
lot
number.
of Sri Lankans who are out there.
Yeah.
But how does it work, the dynamics? Now, once Sri Lankans migrate to countries such as these, for some time they do send some funds back, especially if they have parents who are in need, who are retired perhaps.
Who depend on them.
But this is not in the tens of thousands of dollars. It is a few $100 a month perhaps, which is certainly very important, but it's not going to lift our country out of the situation that it's in right now. And then what typically, correct me if I'm wrong, but what typically happens is after the parents are no more, the links between those who migrated and the mother country, Sri Lanka, those links become weaker and weaker. So there's very little funding which comes back. Perhaps for some important event, some cousin is having a wedding or something like that. But otherwise, it's very little which does come back. However, many Sri Lankans are doing quite well out there, and they do have the capacity to invest.
Yes, of course.
So what's preventing them from investing back home? What would you say are the reasons for this?
Yeah, if you get the immigrants living abroad, then you can find three kinds of immigrants in the Sri Lankan diaspora: Tamil diaspora, Sinhala diaspora, as well as the Muslim diaspora. So if you get the Tamil diaspora, they live there more than 50 years, it seems, if we get them from the 1983. So they have their second and the third generation also there. Now they are well established. Then you can see many millionaires among the Tamil diaspora. In the Sinhalese diaspora also there are so many millionaires. So if we could make a atmosphere for them to invest their money here, I am sure they will come here because the soil is so familiar to them, and even though they didn't born here, they have some kind of relationship with the country. So and I think the biggest thing is, the important thing is, make the trust. Still we couldn't see a trust among the immigrants to invest their money here, because in the we know there is an index called Easy Business Index.
Yes.
Still it is not so good for the not only for the Sri Lankans who live in abroad, and for the other foreign investors to attract here. So we have to make that easy. It is the most important.
The ease of doing business in Sri Lanka.
The second thing is the trust, because you know, when the government is changed, the policies also get changed.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, then you know, when there is a government from Rajapakshas, then the Tamil diaspora little bit afraid to invest their money here, because they don't know what could be the return, or they lost the money. And there is a opinion among the people when there is a UNP government. It give more facilities to invest your money. Then we hope the coming government under the new president also make this easy. And the most important thing is the trust. Make the trust, not ever changing policies for the investors. Then they will come, because in the open economy, then you cannot do much. What you have to make is make the
environment
to come there. Then they do the rest.
Now you spoke of three communities among the diaspora: the Sinhalese, Tamils and Muslims.
Yeah.
So that's very much like the ethnic divide we have here. So it's actually directly related, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
As long as the communities are divided in Sri Lanka, they will continue to be divided overseas as well, because the cause of it is down here, isn't it? So it's would you say it's imperative for any new government to actually take some concrete steps to bringing these communities together? So we hear this word reconciliation, which means nothing in Sri Lanka. We had so many governments talk about reconciliation. There are committees and commissions and officers set up, ministers put in charge, but nothing happens. It's become almost a bad word now. But forget about that word. Let's call it bringing the major communities together, and there are many smaller communities as well, but the three major communities, bringing them together, the four, if you take the upcountry people, then you have 4 communities. Bringing them together, how important is that?
Yeah, it is the most important thing to be a developed country, because if you get the Switzerland as an example, we also have 3 parts according to the language they speak: French speaking part, German speaking part, and the Italian speaking part. But they all together as a one nation, and they think as Swiss to make their motherland the developed country. They all together did it. But if we get the Sri Lanka, still we don't have that strong bond because of the politics and what has happened in the past. But past is past. Now we have to think about the future. For that, government should show their goodwill to collect these all 3 nations together. Otherwise, as you said, this will be continue in the foreign countries also. But you know, we all are South Asians. We all have brown skin. So if you live in the foreign country also, when you see another man with the brown skin, we say hello, how are you, and so on. So now
there's a camaraderie among the South Asians, which you don't always get with between the South Asians and perhaps people who are of that particular country.
We have so many similarities. You know that we all together celebrate the New Year, Sinhalese and the Tamil New Year, and then gods. The Sinhalese and the Tamils all together worship the same gods, and there are so many things. The food also, we eat the same food. So then every time we have to think about the similarities, not the differences. Now what we are focusing is the differences, but by that similarities we can bring all together. Then for that we need a good program which can be launched through the embassies or the high commissions in the foreign countries. But we couldn't see so much they are doing, the people or the embassies what we have in the foreign countries. Just, you know, these institutes just maintain to give the jobs for the retired politicians or the retired government servants, but
and of course relatives of ministers of them, and so on.
But we hope the coming government will address this issue and make these institutes very beneficial for the mother country.
Now, each time a new party or a new government comes into being in Sri Lanka, usually the president, the prime minister, or senior ministers, they stand up and publicly proclaim, we want Sri Lankans living overseas to come back and invest here.
Yes.
But these are mere empty words, aren't they? Because you can't just make a public proclamation and people won't just come flooding in with their money.
Yes.
What more needs to be done to create that ease of doing business? Now we spoke about the need to bring the communities together, but what about ease of doing business? What more needs to be done there?
Yes, I think the previous government got the initiations for that. They have opened a single window to get every documentation at once, and hopefully within 2 weeks time. So then I think the new government should also continue the same, because when the investor comes to here, then he doesn't like to waste his time here and there and go to so many office and so on. Then if we have a one single window to cater their needs and give the approval and do the necessary things, and this is the most important thing to attract the investors, especially the land allocation and so many things, the environmental
the clearances
and all. Yeah, those are big challenges here, because government servants send these investors from here to there. It's not nice, and it prevent the investors come here. That is the biggest thing. The second thing is the honesty. We hope from the coming government they don't ask 10% commission or the bribe to come there and invest. Nobody comes giving bribe into the others. Then that is the most important thing. Stop bribing and make easy.
So the corruption has to be wiped out, basically. Otherwise, we will not be attractive. And actually, we see that even people, businessmen in Sri Lanka, are now, even though they are living in Sri Lanka, they are investing overseas. So there's clearly a huge issue, isn't it?
Yeah. We can see if you get the government sector of Bangladesh, and if you get
I think Vietnam
also, and the tea in Kenya, and we know there are so many power plants, hydropower plants in Uganda belongs to Sri Lankans. So not only those countries, many countries our people have invested. Why? Because they couldn't make a profitable business here. So instead of addressing the foreign investors, if we could bring back our investors, the local investors to the country, I think it might be more beneficial to the country. Then government has to think of that. They have to invite them and have discussion. What make you to go abroad to invest your money? Then you, after you address these problems, I am sure they will come back. Yeah, and the other important thing is our labor cost. Our labor cost is very expensive, but there should be a solution for that also. If you get the Singapore and the Switzerland also, the labor cost is very high. But how did they address that issue? By making the value-added products.
So your products have to be of higher value, which justifies paying a high labor cost.
Yeah, higher cost.
Right.
Yeah, because there is a market for them also. If you get the tea, we just send the powdered one. But there is a market for that. But if you send as a sachet, or if you make lemon tea or the iced tea, or we have cinnamon, but I didn't see cinnamon tea yet. But if you could make variety from them as like coffee, there are many coffee products. But why couldn't we do that for the tea? Because Ceylon tea is the most famous one, and the people know our country because of the tea, and tea is actually an ambassador. Then if we change how we think on our products or our economy, I think we can get a good boost.
Now, tell us a little bit about your organization, the Global Forum of Sri Lankan Immigrants. When did it start and why, and what are the activities?
Yeah, we established it in 2021 to fight against the fight for bring justice for the East attack victims. So that was our initiation. Then we started our struggle from the Bologna in Italy, and we did many protests all around the world in Paris, Geneva, Zurich, London, New York, Melbourne, and everywhere.
Demanding justice for the East attack victims.
East attack victims. Then they that's the first step, and after that we then our forum work with the other local parties while there is a struggle in the so-called the Gulf struggle. So our people funded as they can, send in the food, send in the tents when it was raining, and the generators when there is no current, and so on. And by the making the global opinion, we talk with them.
So that's an interesting point, Dr. Nilanga, because you're describing what you're talking about is the Aragalaya. And of course there have been so many conspiracy theories that this country and that country funded the Aragalaya in order to bring down that government. But in actual fact here, Sri Lankans living overseas have actually helped out to fund the Aragalaya. So there's no hidden foreign hand.
They are false allegations, because now you see it's a common allegation. If something happened in Sri Lanka, we always we have a habit to say there should be a foreign hand behind
foreign conspiracy.
Foreign conspiracy, especially the USA. But if you take the Aragalaya, that was absolute struggle of the people, not the people of Sri Lanka, all around the Sri Lankans in the world, because we have written so many letters to the international organizations, Human Rights Commission, and especially the embassies in Sri Lanka and the ICRC, to make this safe for the local people who were struggling here. And then they collect the money and send to here by themselves. There was no conspiracy. It's a false allegation. I deny it.
So are you happy with the way it turned out? Of course that government at the time, the President Gotabaya resigned, and then we had new government sworn in, and the Aragalaya appears to have achieved what it set out to do. Are you happy with the result? Or is it still a work in progress, still much more to do on the road back to recovery?
The struggle never ends, because we were victorious, as you said. We managed to chase out the President Gotabaya, because he was a failure. We have seen he couldn't run the country, but because of that, it has helped to come to the new president also. But our demands, what are the demands of us? We need a developed country. We need a good governance. We need a ethnic harmony. Then the solution for the ethnic crisis. So, and as the new government promised, the wipe out the corruption and bring back the robbed wealth by the politicians. So there are many things have to be get done.
A work in progress.
It is work in progress. We have to stay open eyes. We have to be a pressurized group. Then otherwise we couldn't get this thing done from any government, whether it is the government from the AKD or from the others. We couldn't. If the people not pressurize the government does the other things. But if you want to keep the government stuck with their promises, you have to be vigilant and keep your eyes open and be a pressurized group. That's what we are doing, especially the Sri Lankan immigrants, the diaspora in the abroad, because they are not living here. Then they don't need anything from the government, but they have funded lot to bring this government to the power by making opinion among the locals and send their parents and the acquaintances to the polling booth to put the vote and so on. And in the social media, they have make a huge sound and so on. At the same time, they are expecting the current government fulfill the promises what they have done. That's the pressure.
And whichever party comes to power tomorrow in tomorrow's election,
it doesn't matter. Yes. Who is in the power is not matter to us. Who is in the power, we pressurize them to do the things they have promised to us. Not even AKD. Other leaders of the other political parties also have promised lot of things. So then we count on them. Day by day we count, you didn't do that, please do that, you should do that before that, and because they have given the time frame also, then they have to stuck for that. Our job is to observe it, follow it, and make them do that.
Excellent. That is good news indeed, that the Sri Lankan community overseas is watching and ever vigilant and is bringing pressure to bear on whoever
we
is
have
in office.
Watchdogs.
Good to hear. So Sri Lankans here on our island are certainly not alone. We are in conversation with Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe, who is the president of the Global Forum of Sri Lankan Immigrants. Don't go away. We will cross over for a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Face to Face. We are in conversation with Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe, president of the Global Forum of Sri Lankan Immigrants. Now, interestingly, Dr. Nilanga was the chairman of the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board before he migrated to Switzerland. Dr. Nilanga, so you were born and bred, you grew up in Sri Lanka, educated here, you got your MBBS degree here, you were a doctor, and you were in public service, and then you went to Switzerland to do a master's, if I recall correctly, a master's in health sciences and health economics, and it was at the University of Lucerne in Switzerland, and of course then you continued there, and you are now working privately in Lucerne in Switzerland. So one of the key aspects which struck me about you is that you were very active as the chairman of the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board. And Sri Lanka today, one of the biggest hurdles to our nation and Sri Lankan society as a whole is narcotics. 30-40 years ago, it was just a nuisance. So something which teenagers might do for or young men do for a short while. But today it's an absolute epidemic. We we have become a society which is hooked on drugs. You have the usual heroin, cocaine, but you have methamphetamines, ice, and you get that at every street corner in Sri Lanka. And how do we now get out of this? Because we had politicians who were behind this all. Otherwise, I mean, you can't do anything in Sri Lanka on a large scale without political backing. We all know this. So how do we now get out of this situation?
I think now we have a good chance for that, because we are going to have a new government under a new president. As we all know, the coming government is going to be a non-corrupted one. We hope so, because most of the corrupted ones are not contesting even in the coming election tomorrow, and we hope the remaining corrupted politicians who are contesting also be wiped out by the people by rejecting in the coming election. So we hope, as you said, we are going to get a non-corrupted government, and we know the new president also same. So then we have that, then the
it's an opportunity. Politically,
then
opportunity.
Then we can keep that away, because when I was working against the drugs, the biggest obstacle for me is the political backing for the drug barons. The politicians were with the drug dealers, not with the government servant who fought against the drugs. But we hope the coming government shouldn't be like that. And if then for the next thing is, you need an independent body fight against the drugs, because it should be only responsible for the parliament, not for the minister, not for the president. You have that autonomy. So that was the thing happened me to flee from my motherland, because in my era I made a system or the independent body which has teeth to fight against the drugs. It is a combined operation body with the custom, with the STF special task force, and the the police division of the narcotics, and the so many stakeholders. And we ask government to please pass this act in the government and give us the power.
This was in 2015.
Then the so many powerful people got
very upset with you.
Upset, and
I can
so
imagine.
Then at the end, then I was chased out, and still they were in this country, and they hold the many portfolios and so on. But hopefully, we think the coming government will address the issue correctly. And but I should say this frankly, I have no idea to be a part of the administration or the government, but I could share my knowledge and the experience here as well as in the abroad. If they really want to address this problem, as you said, everywhere, especially among the teenagers, you can see so many teenagers now got addicted to the drugs, and now it's not a social issue. Now it is going to be a very big issue.
It's an economic issue, a social issue. It's affecting every aspect, isn't it? Because even if you look at the labor market, how do you convince a young man to go and work in a factory or to take up a job in a shop or a supermarket or whatever, when that same young man can go and make 10 times as much at least by simply selling some drugs, some narcotics, methamphetamines or heroin or cocaine or whatever, because that's easy money. And unfortunately, the world is today in an era of get rich quick and, have a flashy car, flashy cell phone, clothes and so on, not to build a proper career and honest through honest hard work. So this is something which it's not unique to Sri Lanka, but it's very critical at a time when Sri Lanka is trying to recover, isn't it?
Yes. We have identified it as a problem of the education system. Because,
really?
Because in the education system, you could take a good knowledge about what are the drugs and what are the effects of them, where you end when you get the drugs and so. And this prevention education is not a part of the education as what has happened to the sex education, because they are taboos in our country. Talk about the alcohol, talk about the tobacco and the drugs and the sex. But if you want to be a modern nation, we have to do the things what the modern nations are doing. You cannot, but if we get our education system, it is still like the 80s, 70s, it is same. But if we could change the attitudes of the people, and if you could give a good hope to the youth, I think they won't go for the drugs, because they all engage with this because of the stress, because they have no hope of their future. They have no idea what is the job they are going to do, and they cannot see any avenue to be a better man rather than driving a three-wheel or, as you said, selling drugs or something to make easy money.
So what you're saying is that while youngsters, young men especially, have no vision for their own futures, they're very susceptible to this easy money, and also the very fact that, like you said, the education system, apart from failing to provide them with skills for life, also doesn't teach them about the consequences of doing drugs and dealing drugs. Because to my knowledge, if you are a drug dealer, small time or big time, you're going to end up in jail. At some point. You might have a nice run for 10 years, 15 years, but at some point you're going to jail. Isn't that the absolute reality?
Yes. You are very correct. Not only going to the jail, they ruin their whole life. They are not ruin the life of themselves. They ruin the lives of their parents and the siblings also. Not only the siblings, the community also. Then it's a very pathetic situation. That's why we need a concrete solution or the concrete program which could address these drug menace. Otherwise, you couldn't find youth, the useful youth in this country, because the majority of the youth are expecting to go to another country and do their higher studies there and settle. But then who the people are going to remain here? I couldn't imagine what is going to be happen to this country, because all the youth who pass the exams with good marks, even in government sector and the private schools, they leave the country. They never come back, and at the end they take their parents also to those countries. Now it is a trend here. So then who the people going to remain here is the selected people. Then how do you develop this country with the selected people? No, you cannot.
So what you're saying is that the new government, whichever party is in power, comes to office rather, needs to sit down and map out what a Sri Lankan's life should be.
Yeah.
Because right now the Sri Lankan dream, as one of our famous economists said a few months ago, the Sri Lankan dream is to migrate to Australia.
Yes.
So this needs to change. There has to be a pathway, educationally, socially, economically, financially, in how you can actually make it in Sri Lanka without actually going and dealing drugs or becoming a corrupt politician or a corrupt civil servant. So what's the mechanism to get this done? Because now we have our ministries, and depending on the particular government, it could be 18, it could be 20, it could be 25, whatever. If it's a coalition government, it can be even 35, 40 ministers. But they all sort of pick very mundane sounding ministries. You have your Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Transport, but these are old ministries. They are the ministries we had 75 years ago as well. But there's no ministry to deal with, for example, the drug menace. It's nominally under the police, which is under the Ministry of Public
Law and
Security,
order,
law, and so on. But there's no one ministry which is tasked with fighting the drug menace. And then there's no one ministry which looks at what is the Sri Lankan pathway to success for millions of youth. We have these various scattered organizations within government, but we don't seem to have this, our focus right. How do you do this? How do you set about? Does it need a revamping, a rethink of the cabinet ministries?
I think you have understood the problem very correctly. Now, as you said, we have to have these ministries for the education, agriculture, health and so on. At the same time, we need ministries, empowered ministries to address the
modern
issues,
challenges.
Modern challenges. There is a lapse at that point, as you said. So, I think if you get the drug menace again, there should be a separate department, independent body which could address the problem. And we hope this government will, the coming government will recognize that issue and they address it. But for that you need a vision. Then we need a visionary leaders. And at the same time, there is a problem with our intellectuals also, because one man couldn't make everything. Then the intellectuals, professionals should come with their suggestions to the government. And tell, you can do this to mitigate this problem. You can do this to bring the more investors and so on. And at the same time, government should have big ears to listen them. Sometimes we know in the past we have that experience. They are very arrogant. They were very arrogant. They didn't like to listen to the people, not only the common people, not only the professionals, professors and so on from the Department of Economy and so on, because they have their own ideas. But there is a limit. You can go with those things, because to address the technical things, you need a technician. Then to know how to run a hospital, you need a professional who engage with that job. If you put a farmer, if you get the previous governments, you have seen who are the ministers for the Ministry of Health. They knew nothing about the health. If you get the other ministries also, especially the finance, we had a minister called Kaputa also. What does he know about the finance? And every time the president was the minister of finance in this country. In the Chandrika's regime, Mrs. Chandrika was the finance minister. When the Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president, he was the finance minister. Why? What are the capabilities or the knowledge they have?
So what you're saying, Dr. Nilanga, is that the minister in charge of a particular sector needs to have some knowledge of that sector. Perhaps not a person who is, the Minister of Health doesn't need to be a doctor, but should have some knowledge.
General knowledge.
And
general knowledge, and be honest to take the opinions from the relevant authorities and the relevant professionals. That's the important thing. You don't need to be expert of the particular subject, but you should be honest. But we couldn't see with the ministers, they are honest to accept the propositions from the professions. I have noticed it in all my career.
So you are correct in that we have an enormous number of professionals in this country. Whether it's agriculture or health or education, we do have professionals, but the power, the authority somehow goes into the hands of ministers who know nothing about it and won't listen. So then the professionals sort of melt away because they are not being heard. There's no point in them just repeating and not being listened to. So these are key issues of governance, isn't it?
Of course.
So that's interesting. Now let's one final area I'd like to ask you, since your expertise in Sri Lanka was in dangerous drugs. Sri Lanka is today a transit point for drugs. It's coming out of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Myanmar and so on, and it comes here, and it's not being smuggled in some handbag. That also happens, but it's coming in containers. And then those containers are either broken down into smaller parcels, or they are shipped in whole, and they are going to Western countries, where they're sold for enormous amounts of money. Now, this can't happen without our politicians and our civil servants being involved. You don't think some Afghan drug dealer is doing it on his own. It is Sri Lankans who are doing it, and ministers. How do we get out of this? Now, our reputation is as a drug transit hub. How do we get out of this?
You are very correct. Sri Lanka is a well-known transit hub for the drugs, especially for the cocaine and heroin. And now, the pathetic thing is, in this country, there are a few labs manufacturing ice also. Now, it is going to be a very big problem in near future, because when the youth start to make the tablets themselves, then before that you have to address that problem. If we go back to your question, how we can prevent the transport be a transit hub.
Hub for it. Yes.
For that there is a very good global network work against that, because I have worked with that global network. Every time we get the informations from the USA, India, Australia and Singapore also.
Intelligence gathering agencies.
Intelligence. So, every time they gave the informations about the transitions, not about the drugs come for the sale in the land.
Because they are interested in the drugs which are entering their country, which
Yeah.
are transiting Sri Lanka.
Yeah, they want to stop that. They want to stop the international market, not the local market. That's why you cannot see any reduction of the drugs in the local market. But we have seen lot of containers of cocaine get caught, and we have burned them, and the hundreds of kilos of heroin got caught and got to custody. But the amount we need for the local market is still coming. There is no restrictions,
no reduction in
no
that.
reduction, and we have failed to catch them.
Right.
You know, for the good control, you should reduce the supply.
Yes.
At the same time, when you reduce the demand, when these two don't meet together, then there is no control. So, for that we have to work together. Then we have to give some kind of information to the international organizations. But still, we all depend on the international organizations. We have nothing to give them, because our operations in the land is very weak. The institutes who should work for that doing very lethargic work for that. We have to proactive them, and we have to give the targets. Top of them, we have to give the promotions and intensives. Then without giving a good life condition for the officers who work for them, you couldn't ask many things from them, because you know we all have the same problems to survive day to day.
So it's a complex problem,
Yeah.
both a social
Tie it
problem
all together.
and law enforcement, and it requires an international effort,
Effort, yeah.
to solve this.
Yes.
Well, I'm afraid we are out of time tonight. My thanks to Dr. Nilanga Samarasinghe, President of the Global Forum of Sri Lankan Immigrants. Thank you very much for spending this time with us. I know you're only here for a few more days,
Yeah.
and all the very best to you. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.